Well, hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and welcome to another edition of the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. But the star of the show today is this Bulova watch that I recently obtained. This is officially the model 96A187, or the Bulova Sutton, from their classic automatic collection. I don't have a lot of mechanical watches. I've got a few mechanical clocks around, but most of my clock collection and watch collection is filled with quartz movements, and I decided it would be fun to get an automatic mechanical watch. Back in the old days, we used to call this a self-winding watch. But okay, so mechanical. I wanted to see the interior of the watch and some of these moving pieces inside. So I decided to get a skeletonized case watch. And as I looked around, there were a lot of options out there on the market, but I decided to zero in on this one. Bulova being, it's a company that started in 1875 in New York City by an immigrant by the name of Joseph Bulova. And became a big deal, had some ups, had some downs, and eventually, at the very beginning of 2008, the company was bought by Citizen in Japan. So officially, Bulova is still based in New York City, but they're part of the Citizen group based in Japan as well. So I figured this would probably be a pretty good choice because, not knowing that much about the current state of mechanical watches, I didn't want to go wrong. I wanted to get something that was good, but I wasn't quite sure. I didn't want to pay the super high prices of, with some Swiss-made stuff or other European manufacturers, but I didn't want to get, a little bit unsure of the quality and reliability of some of the Chinese stuff on the market. So this one seemed like a good compromise, didn't cost a lot of money. Typical on this one, you can find it from between $250 and over $400. The suggested price on the Bulova website for this is $440, but I paid much closer to the $250 price for this one. So, okay, so because it has a skeletonized case, as you can see, you can see some of the movement going on in there. That's the balance wheel that's going back and forth there, and you can see a little bit of the escapement also inside there. And yeah, so it has the skeletonized case, so you can see that from the front. But also, if I unclasp this, let's just take a quick look at the back of it. See, that is what they call an exhibition case back. So you can also see the moving pieces that are visible from the back. And so, you can actually see right through the thing. So, there's you see my finger moving around back there behind it. Let's see, can you see my knitting needle pointer? Yeah, behind it. So I think, to me, that was the most fun, to have the back and the front both with some transparent material so you could see right through. Of course, for a lot of folks, they prefer maybe a more traditional looking face. They might have the exhibition case back so that if they turn it over, they can see what's going on inside. But for the most part, a lot of people prefer to just have a watch that looks regular from the front while they're wearing it. But again, I decided I really wanted to celebrate the concept of mechanical and go ahead and get something where you could see as much as possible. So, just for the fun of it, I'm going to take one of these little lights that I've got here and shine a colored light from behind. I could make that green. Oh, do you like that one? Or blue. Let's see, blue. Get the blue. Okay, so that's kind of fun, just for the sake of the video, to shine some colors through this thing so you can really get a sense of how that skeletonized case makes it so you can really see what's going on inside that watch. Other things to tell you about this watch, of course, it's a nicely polished stainless steel case there. It picks up my fingerprints pretty easily, so I try to polish that off as well as I can. And also, it's got this nice stainless steel bracelet and a very unique clasp here on the back. They call this a double press deployment clasp. So see, that's kind of what it looks like just on the bottom there, again, under your wrist. And then it kind of has this thing where it opens up in two directions, almost symmetrical there. So when you open it up, it just kind of goes like that. It's a little bit tricky to get used to closing it up if you're used to a more traditional clasp, but it's not that hard to get used to. And it's kind of nice. I really like that. As you can see, Here, it identifies the movement as a Japanese movement, 21 joules, the Miyota Company 8N24 movement. And I looked this up, and you can actually find this movement available just on its own. So if you're into making your own watches, or you've got the right size case for it, you want to just buy that movement and start doing some things on your own, it is available. You can buy the movement just as is, with no case, for, I don't know, one place I saw had it for $65, somewhere between $65 and $100, generally speaking. But you know what? Just for convenience sake, I will prefer to just have this one where it's already assembled in a nice water-resistant, it says 100-meter water resistance on this case. And just it's really nice looking, and I'm actually already very pleased with this. So the case itself, the diameter is 43 millimeters. And the thickness there is 12 millimeters. Oh, you can see my fingerprints all over it. I'm sorry. and yeah, it just feels really nice and solid. It's a little on the heavier side compared to my other watches. But actually, when you're buying a mechanical watch, I think having it heavier, a little bit hefty, yeah, a little, it makes it feel more substantial. It makes it feel like you've bought a quality piece of engineering because it's heavy. It's almost like, remember in the movie Jurassic Park, when the kids are playing with the night vision goggles, and the lawyer says, if it's heavy, it's expensive, so put it away. Well, I don't know that that's the best indicator, but at least it gives you that feel that there's something important here, because it's a little bit on the heavy side, and that's fine. Now here, there's just a little bit of a raised bezel there, and you can see the crystal sort of goes down, just a little bit down below the farthest extreme of where the bezel sticks out. So just a little bit, a little bit down in there, a little bit protected, but that is a mineral glass crystal, so not the most scratch resistant crystal, but I'm going to take good care of it. And I think since it's recessed just a little bit, I think that's going to help it. Oh, I never really noticed that little tuning fork kind of looking emblem there on the crown. It looks more like the little fork that is on the escapement, that little part down there. When they say 21 joules, maybe you didn't know what that means. It means that in some of these places where you might have two pieces of metal rubbing against each other all the time, maybe where some gears come together and stuff like that, they usually put artificial joules in there just to help with the wear and tear, so that things don't wear out as much when the joules are rubbing against each other instead of metal pieces rubbing against each other. So I used to think, well, the more joules the better, right? And I guess that's true, because that means that they've taken care to protect and to protect those moving pieces where they would be susceptible to wear. And there you can see the joules, they kind of show up like a bright pink. Just a few dots there. I could probably, slow down the recording and count all 21 joules, but it's nice to know that they're there. Now you see that little thing that's kind of wobbling back and forth. That's the rotor, and that's what allows for the self-winding, or, the automatic movement there. So as you're just doing your normal everyday stuff, moving your wrist back and forth, that rotor is gonna rotate around, and that action is what's able to wind the mainspring on this watch. Let's see if I can get that really going. There we go, a little bit of that action. So that's happening just kind of in the background under the watch, right against your wrist all the time as you're moving around. And again, that action is what's winding up the mainspring. You can also wind it just by turning the crown in a clockwise fashion like this. That's one way to do it, but I find that if the watch is stopped for some reason, like you haven't worn it for a few days and it's had no winding taking place, the best thing to do is wind it just enough with this crown to get it going, and then start wearing it. And as you wear it, it will very soon start to, have that rotor action generate all the energy needed to wind up the mainspring. So, these watches are pretty good these days about not allowing themselves to be overwound to do something that might damage the mainspring or any of the mechanism in there. But one way, again, to just be sure that you've avoided overwinding your mechanical watch is if it's stopped, only wind it enough to make it go, and then let the natural action of your movement turn that rotor to take care of the rest of the winding. This watch was first available on the market in September of 2018. So as I'm making this video, it's only been a couple of years since this watch was introduced. And again, I think it's a great case to go with apparently a very reliable movement. I'm going to do some accuracy tests over the next few weeks and see how it goes. But so far, having used this for just a few days, I think that it runs a little bit fast. I would say that in about 24 hours, it has gained and therefore is fast by about 3 or 4 seconds a day. So, that comes out to maybe 120 seconds per month, which is 2 minutes. According to the manual for this movement, the accuracy should be from between minus 20 seconds to plus 40 seconds per day. So already it's doing much better than that. So I don't have any immediate plans to do anything about trying to regulate that and adjust its accuracy. I'm just going to leave it as is for the time being and see how it goes. But I think 3 or 4 seconds a day is just fine. If it's really very simple to set the time on this one. Obviously you have the 3 hands, and if I just pull the crown out, it doesn't stop the second hand, but I can turn this ahead to whatever time I want it to be. Now if I start to turn it backwards, that let's see, you can see it it stops the second hand, and then you can see how it just kind of bounces back and forth a little bit and maybe moves a little bit. So it would be tricky to try to, I wouldn't say this is one of what they call a hackable movement. So it would be tricky to try and synchronize this exactly to some time source. But I think the best I can do is if I look at this and I see that it's approaching the 12 o'clock position, I can dial in the exact minute that I want it to be and then just hit it right about there. And that's, again, that would be just within a few seconds of the actual time right now. And again, I would expect over the next several days for this to move ahead anyway. So yeah, I'll see how that goes. This is supposed to have about a 40-hour, actually slightly more than 40-hour power backup. So if it's fully wound and you just put it down and it's not getting any energy put into the mainspring there, it should run for over 40 hours. And so, you've got almost 2 full days before you need to pick it up and start using it again. Or, of course, if for some reason you didn't wear it and it completely ran out of power and it stopped, again, just give it a few turns here until you see the second hand go, and then wear it. Have some fun with it. Now, if you need to adjust the size of the bracelet here, it's actually pretty simple. Here you can see where there are little arrows along the first few links on this side. And if I just turn it over this way, it's the same on the other side there. I removed 3 links, so 2 from one side and 1 from the other side of the clasp in order to make this fit my wrist better. And my wrist is about 7.5 inches. I think it's a pretty average size wrist. So it's actually pretty simple. What you do is you have to get something that's small enough and pointed enough to fit into that hole on the arrow side. And then you just gently push the pin out in the direction of the arrow. And this is what the links look like when the pin is being pressed out. I'll just show you on this one. So it comes all the way out, and on the one end you see it looks like it's got a little bit of a groove on the very tip there, but actually it's the other end that has even more little grooves. So when you put it back in, just remember that this side that has kind of more grooves on the tip is the side that is farthest away from the arrow. And again, if you want to remove one link, then you have to take the pin out for the 2 links that are right next to each other, and then that allows you to release the links there. It's pretty straightforward if you've worked with any watch bracelets before, and it's really not that difficult. In fact, even easier to work with this if you have a very simple little tool. You can get these kind of watch tools for very cheap these days online. In fact, here's the watch band tool, bracelet tool I used for this particular procedure. See, if I turn this here, then it's got that little pin that comes out. So all I did was I lined up the pin in the tool with the hole next to the arrow there and made sure that it was aligned just so. And then as I turned this part here, you can see that it pushes the pin outward. and then I just retract that pin in the tool, and now I have my links here with that pin extended, so it's very easy now to remove this pin and then, you know, adjust the number of links. And again, very easy to work with. And, you know, once you have it the right size, it's very easy to just gently press this back into place so that the pins are flush and you're on your way. Now, there's a little bit of luminous material on the tips of the hands on both ends of the minute hand and the hour hand, and these little hour markers around the outer edge of the face. It's not great. I don't really have any of my watches with really great luminous material, glow-in-the-dark material, but you know, it's there, shows up a little bit, and again, I'm not used to expecting any of my watches to have great illumination at night from the glow-in-the-dark material. Now I'll do some quick size comparisons here for you. Here you see the Bulova watch, and here's a Wave Scepter watch I have from the American market, which is one of the larger watches as far as those Wave Scepters go. But you can see the Bulova watch is larger. Here we go, compared to a G-Shock Square watch. So you can see, again, it's bigger than the G-Shock Square. You know, again, 12 millimeters thick. So perhaps the Square is a little bit thicker, but okay. Now here's a comparison to a popular G-Shock model there, and this compares to one of the first G-Shocks that I ever bought. So again, now we're looking at comparable sizes there. And again, here's my Gravity Master watch. So again, now finally the Bulova is not looking like it's such a big brute of a watch. Oh, but hang on, let's put it up against this Timex, the model that I had when I was a kid. And yeah, now that Bulova is a substantial watch. But tell you what, let's do an official weigh-in on this Bulova. Okay, 163 grams. That is among the heaviest of my watches. Now this G-Shock here is a little bit heavier than average. This is a Japanese model, but it's still only 74. So you're talking, you know, more than double the weight for this Bulova compared to this, you know, one of the heavier G-Shock Squares. Hey, but wait, hang on. Let's look at this. Okay, 85 for this big old Gravity Master here. Casio Duro watch with a metal bracelet comes in at 136. Okay, so you know that's getting comparable now to this big old Bulova. And how about that that popular DW 6900 or GW 6900 model, 60 grams. So, you know, you're 100 grams heavier or so when you get to this Bulova. But you get used to it. I really don't have any complaints about wearing a heavy watch when it's something like this. It feels right. It really does not bother me at all that it's a big, on the larger side and also on the heavier side compared to some of my other watches. So there you go. So far, so good. I'll have to follow up if there are any long-term developments here on things like accuracy and durability. But I think I will be satisfied with this Japanese-made Miyota movement and this very nice-looking skeletonized Bulova case. And yeah, my first mechanical watch that I've had brand new ever since the 1970s. And my first self-winding or automatic mechanical watch. So I'm looking forward to many years of fun putting this in the regular rotation with all of my other watches. Oh, by the way, it's a 21,600 beats per minute movement. So I think that's pretty standard on some of these nicer movements for those of you who can appreciate that. As you can see, kind of the sweep second hand look there with that 21,600 beats per minute movement. All right, so that's all for now. I will hope you will join me again soon because I have some other stuff I need to talk to you about and talking about some of my newer acquisitions, celebrating mechanical timekeeping devices lately. So I do hope you'll join me again soon in another episode of The Good Timekeeping Show.